be able to record. So I hope that is good with everyone. And thank you. I'm going to hand the screen to Marta and off you go. We could do a quick intro of yourself too, and then it's all you.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I am the school-based clinical supervisor at FamilyMeans. So I supervise all the school-based therapists that are in, oh my gosh, I think it's like 18 schools right now. We're all throughout 834, the Stillwater School District, and also the North St. Paul, Oakdale, Maplewood, a couple of those schools, and a district in Wisconsin. So I work with all those people. Um, but my history, my checkered past, is from all different sorts of things. Sports psychology before I got into went back to school for counseling psychology. So I have a lot of knowledge of that specific kind of psychology. And then I think one of the most important things as we go today is that I was an IOP therapist, which is intensive outpatient program. So we have people that are quite compromised health and mental health wise coming 5 days a week, group therapy. I had two groups of that, a regular therapy group for people with just, a range of diagnoses, but also the adapted dialectical behavioral therapy group, which is a kind of therapy that really focuses on managing emotions, thoughts, relationships. So I'm going to pull from that a lot today. And so when we started talking about this, uh, was in, I think, late November. And we were looking ahead and discussing and thinking, wow, this is such a tumultuous time for people and their emotions. And through the holidays, too, people are going to be with friends, with family, with their chosen family, with whomever. But people sometimes they're not aligned in their beliefs and things, and that can lead to very hard conversations. Um, Also, and so I've shifted the focus a little bit, and I'll explain why. Because we looked ahead to January as the next very difficult time that people would have, having conversations, but also taking care of oneself. And that, for the kinds of work we all do, and for anyone really, is very important. So I've shifted a little bit more to some of, I think there was another like overly long subtitle called Taking Care of Yourself and Others During These Tumultuous Times, et cetera, existential angst, blah, blah. So I've shifted a little bit more to that because I think in the last couple weeks, that's really come up so much. It's come up with clients, it's come up at schools, it's come up at work, it's come up with people in their, personal lives is like, how do I manage in this world where there are wars and chaos and sweeping changes to policies that affect people and et cetera, et cetera. Do I not watch the news at all? Do I watch every single bit of the news, et cetera, et cetera? So we're going to go that way a little bit more. Um, so I really want people, if they have questions, to ask them at the time. I'm used to interacting with people, having a group therapy that's 90 minutes long with up to 10 people in it. And sort of a lot of these concepts come out, and people are interacting with them with their own questions, with how does this affect me? What do I do with that? Um, the thing is, this may be very short, it may be very long. It just kind of depends, but it's really there's a lot of information in a sort of a very short way. So if there's something that you are wanting to know more about, I mean, almost every slide could be its own whole presentation. So I don't want to bore you with things that you may already know, but I want to throw enough things out there so that if there are things that sort of hit you, they resonate, you think, wow, that could be really helpful for me or someone else I know, please just jump in and ask and we'll go right through it. All right. Um, Oh, here. It's not advancing the slide. Yes, so I'm not a skilled technology person. I'm a neo-Luddite. And you said use that down arrow and it's not working to move the slide.
You should also be able to just try the space bar.
Hmm.
There you go, hon.
Caring for self and others, communicating in troubled times. So yes, this is pretty much what I just said. It's really a piece too about balancing your integrity. Like, what do I believe? And someone else might believe something very different. And we have to kind of balance out what's the importance of this relationship? Is this worth even discussing with this person? Is this something that I need to discuss because I will feel like I'm not standing up for what I believe? So we're going to talk about managing the mind, body, self system. That's my long version of talking about, sometimes hear the mind body connection. I really see it's a system. In DBT, there's a whole chart and concept about how our physiological reactions influence our thoughts and meanings and our emotional response and such. But we're going to talk about wise mind, the concept of wise mind, which is very important in terms of managing one's emotions and understanding self and others. We'll talk a little bit about communication skills, a little bit about boundaries. That's always a question. I think, again, it was more like before the holidays when people are thinking, oh my gosh, I'm going to go there. Aunt Sue and Uncle John are going to be there. They think this, I think that. What happens when we get into this conversation? Um, and I think now that's relevant in terms of maybe who you want to look to for support or process your stuff, or maybe who you don't want to do that with. And we're going to talk about radical acceptance, which some people have heard of, some people have not. And my experience has been that most people who have heard of radical acceptance have only heard of part of it. But that, for me, is something that I use every day right now, for sure. And it means, how do I get through this time where there are very upsetting things to me or things that either feel like a crisis or are, without making things worse? We can't walk around crying and um, being in very emotional mind, because we can't work then, we can't talk with people, we can't help with people, and we can't take any kind of actions that could change this in the future. So I'm going to talk about that a bit. Okay. Complex conversations. So, true confessions, this is one of the first PowerPoints I've made, and I was pretty proud of this slide. Um, Although they don't have to look like this. What we're looking for is a way to have two kind of more reasonable people discussing, but complex conversations can be very hard. And I want to say that particularly in the Midwest, people tend to think of complex conversations as this. They think it means, I don't like conflict. And not everything has to be a conflict. If you disagree with someone and they disagree with you, is it a conflict? Not necessarily. Um, when someone disagrees with me or they challenge something that's very important to me, I have a feeling that rises up like I'm being attacked, maybe, but that's within me. They may not be attacking, or may need to say something difficult that'll be difficult for them to hear. So we can manage some of these things inside us to help make these conversations not look like this. Okay, let's see. Troubled times. What does this even mean? Does anybody want to throw out a few things that for you are particularly hard? I mean, this is personal. Some people are really upset about some things and they have that on their mind all the time. And then other people be like, well, that's not important because global warming is everything. And if we don't fix global warming, it won't matter for this or that. And other people are really focused on maybe something that's closer to home or something that's affecting someone in their family. But I think that most people would agree, and I listed some of the biggies here, but there's lots of stuff to be upset about right now, both on the global scale, the national scale, and sometimes right in our own backyard or in our own home. Okay. This is the part where if a smaller group, I'm asking people what they know about things and to give examples. So again, managing the mind-body self system, and I'm just referred to it as the self system, is where we're going to go next. And the reason is because you can have all the communication skills in the world, giving iMessages, do this, do that. I have a little slide on that. But when you're in that conversation, again, you have what's going on in here. And it's really difficult to tolerate these conversations or have anything helpful come from them, or to stop the conversation in a gentle way and redirect if your body and your system is getting very escalated. So thoughts, emotions, and physical responses are all connected. There are different kinds of therapies that pull or look more at these things. For thoughts, we have cognitive behavioral therapy. We have some others that deal with our thinking, and changing the thinking would change the emotions. And I think the physical piece, that's the part in our where our body is responding. So DBT kind of combines those. Dialectical is two things that you're trying to hold at once and not pick this or that, and also our emotions. And then the physical responses are pretty important. And I think that's the one that sometimes gets lost a bit as we try to think our way out of things. And when you're in a crisis, the stress response kicks in. The fight, flight, freeze. Most people have heard of fight, flight, freeze. And I have this picture of this lovely lion because as someone who used to run a lot, and people's dogs are out, doing their dog thing. And lots of times a dog will run up to you barking like this. And I immediately feel that fight, flight, freeze. I don't know if the dog is like this lion and it's going to bite me, especially if you've been bitten once, because your body remembers that. Or, I mean, I've never felt like I was going to fight off a dog, but in terms of fight, flight, freeze, you can go into any one of these ways. You have to fight. You can't think. You have to either fight the lion, run away from the lion, or like a deer or a little rabbit, freeze and hope the lion doesn't see you. And freezing doesn't just mean I'm going to be really still. If anyone has had a panic attack, freezing is a physiological response that dumps chemicals from your brain into your body and really freezes you. So this is the point where I usually ask, has anybody ever experienced that? Has anybody had a panic attack? And of course, in an intensive outpatient program, hands go up. And then there's always someone who says, I'm not sure. I think I might have had one. And then the other people will go like, you'd know. So if you've had a panic attack, these three kinds of responses, they kick in before you even think about it. You're not thinking, oh, I think I might be kind of scared, whatever. It's like that is a protective response that your body creates. And then I put in real or perceived threat. The reason this is important is because anxiety is there to protect us. Again, it's something that has been handy over the millenniums, and we're evolved to respond to threats to protect ourselves. A real or perceived threat, this is why people get kind of confused about panic attacks. Like, why are you afraid of elevators? Why can't you go in a store and buy a gallon of milk? Because a real threat is a lion or someone coming at you with a weapon or something like that. A perceived threat is something your system perceives in that same way. And that can be very simple, it can be very complicated. But your system is responding to it as if there's a lion right there. And that's that emotions, thoughts, physical responses thing all wrapped up together. So if we're working with panic or trying to manage our emotions when we know we're going to go somewhere and there's going to be difficult conversations, that can feel like a threat, even though we're not in danger. Our system perceives it as a threat. I put existential angst on there. Firstly, because I love that term. Secondly, because it's so prevalent. And I think now it's like so much of what we are concerned about, and rightly so. It's not necessarily, I'm afraid that someone is going to, I don't know, I don't want to get graphic, but like when I leave my house, something awful's going to happen to me, like I'm in a war zone. But because there is so much going on and it piles up in our system, it piles up like this. And our level is up here rather than our tolerance being down here. If we're down here, we have a lot of room for some bad news or something to happen because we can take that stress and sort of process it and let it go. And then more comes and we process it and we let it go. What happens when people get in this more delicate place is they've had too much of these things, real or perceived. And by perceived, I don't mean that that they don't exist. I mean, if there's a policy change and that's a real threat to you in the future, but you're not going to right now at this moment be attacked. Um, so our systems get sort of built up with this. And the existential part kind of like hangs around and makes us more vulnerable, more stress vulnerable. So I heard a lot of people in the last 2 weeks say, oh my gosh, I'm just on edge. I can't, it's just hard for me to hold it together. I don't know what to do. I feel like this all the time, or like I'm more argumentative. I mean, that's because we are more stress vulnerable right now because of these many things that are in our world. Wise mind. So I'm again, it was like, do I want to have 500 slides or do I want to have 15? um, Wise mind is a DBT concept that helps us envision, again, how we are going to manage ourselves. This could be for a difficult conversation. This could be for, again, if you're in some kind of just a kind of a general existential, I'm just upset about everything right now because everywhere I look, everything's bad. But it's a way of envisioning what's happening in that mind, body, self system. What is happening in the system? So, emotion mind is the part of us, of that system, that responds emotionally to things. It's kind of hot, it's emotion driven, it's being flooded with an emotion. Um, if you've ever gotten into a conversation and you started to feel yourself get more and more upset, emotion mind is coming on. Reasonable mind, facts and logic, things like that, more intellectual. Reasonable mind doesn't have any emotion. It's just looking objectively, like think if you're a scientist or something, you're not looking at feelings, not looking at the relationship between you and me. We're not connecting this to things that have happened in our childhood or our past or the relationship or anything like that. It's very thoughts and facts based. Now, both of those things are helpful. Wise mind is in the middle. Wise mind is basically thinking and feeling at the same time. I can feel empathy and I'm understanding. I can listen to you and hear, the facts or the pieces that you are saying. And I can have thoughts about that. I'm not having purely emotional responses. Um, but I also can feel. I can feel that what I'm hearing, I have feelings about that. So the idea isn't to be in wise mind all the time. The idea is in DBT, it's called walking the middle path. It doesn't mean, because I've had people say, I don't want to be in emotion mind. I'm gonna be out of control. No, no, no. I'm gonna be staying in reasonable mind, which actually that's only the cognitive part because the rest of your body knows. The rest of your system knows that you are angry or you are happy or you are fearful or you feel shame. But reasonable mind is dominating. But then reasonable mind can't take into account any of those pieces of the other person. Now, I find this really, really helpful for not just managing oneself, but also those conversations. Because when we listen to people, our stuff is reacting. And we're going to have feelings about that. And then we're going to maybe make assumptions. And then if we slip too far into emotion mind, then we say things that are unkind or we don't say anything at all. And then we're just stewing all day. So we want to think about how do we get in wise mind? How do we get in wise mind? And there are going to be times again where reasonable mind is really helpful. When I'm in a kind of, I've had lots of practice dealing with stressful situations, and it's very helpful to be in reasonable mind. This is what we need to do. We need to do it right now, etc. I don't really have time to be like sad or any of this stuff because I'm dealing with the emotion or with the emergency. Emotion mind is a time when you're really connecting with someone. And so we want that too. So wise mind is in between. We want to be able to kind of swing in and out when we want to. Um, all right. I should go back one. There are several strategies that I thought we would talk about today. Um, and some of them are called top down and some of them are called bottom up. Those are a couple big categories. This is one thing where, I could give you another hour on top down strategies and another hour on bottom up strategies. But people are a little bit more familiar either through their own experiences and the things that they have wisely tried and figure out worked for them, or perhaps in certain kinds of therapy, top down strategies, cognitive coping, cognitive behavioral therapy, using our thoughts to calm the body. and be in wise mind and to say, it's okay. That's not going to happen. Or I'm all right with, okay, yep, I'm checking the facts. Maybe this person is journaling, so they're using that to process what's happening and to calm. And those are great. Those are very reasonable and helpful ones. When that level of distress is up here, so if your level of distress is here and you can use a strategy to bring it down here, great. When your level of distress is up here, you're too far probably in fight, flight, emotion, mind to say, okay, all right, yeah, just oh, hang on, it's not that bad. No, 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 no. The body is like ready to respond. The system is going to respond. So top-down strategies are great, but right in the moment, the bottom-up ones are going to be really helpful and important. Um, so it's not good or bad. It's what do you need right now? Bottom up strategies are ones where instead of thinking and calming our body and being able to be in that wise mind, um, we're going to calm the body first without thinking about the whys, without thinking about how long, what about this, maybe that, you could just do this. We're not going there. We recognize and we want to physically calm. That's where, and I know a lot of these are pretty common now, but breathing techniques, there's 1, 2, 3 breathing, there's a box breathing technique. There are things, what the breath work does is it's rhythmic, it's calming. It also stimulates something called the vagal nerve. And I didn't get my really cool slides up for that because, again, that's another whole thing. But the vagal nerve is a nerve that runs basically all the way up the spinal cord to the head. And when we breathe or sing or cry hard, that nerve gets a little massage almost. And it says to our brains, ah, yeah, let's produce some calming brain goodies. So that's why that is a very helpful thing, breathing. Sensory techniques, by sensory techniques, I mean sometimes people will have a little like a stone, a smooth stone that they'll rub. One thing that I learned from years and years of sitting in groups and taking notes is, oh, people have like a stress ball, people have fidgets, but I have my own, like, you see these pens? This is just a pen, and the pen has like a little, I think it says big round something or other. But if you rub it, it's rough and it's smooth on the rest of the pen. And I realized I'm sitting there in group, and of course, I'm being very like calm Zen therapy lady mostly, except when I get really animated when I'm talking about things. But I would realize that when somebody was talking about something very stressful, they're talking about a suicide attempt, they're talking about some kind of tragic thing, they're talking about loss, they're talking about any of these things. And I'm listening. So I'm in my head. I'm in my head listening. I'm in reasonable mind. But my body's telling me, you better be ready. You better be ready to respond to this, to that person in their moment of need, to other people, because group therapy it's great if you ever have a chance to do it. That'd be another whole talk. But I have to be aware and manage other people's responses and what's happening. And what I would realize was I was gripping my pen, gripping it. All the while I'm staying very calm. And I would rub, I realized this and I didn't even know I was doing it. I would rub my thumb on that rough part. And the sensory piece works through the body and can calm you. Um, So there are other pieces with that sensory. There are grounding techniques. There are, I used to cut up little fabric strips and just have a whole basket of them on my table, and people could grab them, and some were fuzzy, some were smooth. They're touching these, they're rubbing, they're calming themselves. Um, Tip skills, that's a DBT thing, and it's temperature, intense exercise, paced breathing, and paired relaxation. So that's a whole set of skills that you can use to calm yourself. And movement I put in, and I'm looking at the time here, and I'm thinking, how am I doing, Mary?
You are fine. We have
Okay,
a block.
okay, because I thought we might just do one or two things. So movement, that is another way, I think. A lot of times we want to be calm and like, okay, we're gonna sit here. She looks like she's meditating. That's absolutely great. People sometimes, when they're in that more ramped up emotional mind stage, or for some of us where our brains go like this, we're sitting there meditating, or we're trying to calm, and because we're very escalated, and then it's like, no, because I'm sitting here, and all that happens is these upsetting things keep coming in. So movement can be a way of taking that focus and bringing it to the body, and also making you aware of the stresses you hold in your body. Um, so we're gonna just do something really simple here. I'm gonna see if I can do two things for you. One is, and I would be sitting down, and I would have my hands on my kind of my lap, but I would grip my hands like this. So grip your hands, feel how tense it is. You can close your eyes and feel that. Oh my gosh, it's hot, it's tense. Take a deep breath in. And when you exhale, let your hands unfold. It's nice if your hands are down on your lap, you can just let them sort of flop out. Breathe in and feel the contrast between the clenching and the release. Feel the contrast. Your hand feels kind of warm. You can sort of picture that tension coming off of it. And so that's something that you can do. You don't have to have a dark room. You don't have to have like be by yourself. You can just do a little clench and release. It could be even again, like you could be gripping your pen, and then you feel that tension, and then you just release it. And then I'm also trained in trauma-focused yoga, which is a lovely, lovely thing. It is a bit different than regular yoga because there's a whole language of invitation. So you participate at your own comfort level. But a couple of those things that are helpful is just, I just invite you to gently roll your head on your neck. You can breathe in, I'm rolling it to the right side, back, out, in to the left, down to the front. And if we were doing this in a yoga class, we would be stopping and pausing and noticing where those areas of tension are. Where are those areas of tension? Oh, I always have one side that's tighter than the other. That's very common. So there are some very simple things you can do there. Again, this could be a whole session, but things to calm you from the bottom up. Also, there are just some very simple things is to start to notice where you carry your stress. I carry a lot in my shoulders, and I will notice that by the end of the day, after sitting, typing, driving, writing, doing whatever, I'm like kind of what I call the T-Rex. I'm like this. And I have so much tension in my shoulders. And so just to stop a couple times a day and sort of roll your shoulders back, pull the shoulder blades together, roll them up to your ears. You combine this with breathing. Even that, bringing down that stress level. So this is when your body is communicating with your brain that there's no danger. Because I'm not sitting under a tree, stretching and breathing if there's something barreling at me in a threat way. So when we work through the body and the body up things, that gives the rest of our system and our mind calm. Okay, now I'm in wise mind. I can solve problems. I don't have this irritable, ready to respond thing going on. Um, Radical acceptance. Boy, I'm feeling like I need to be really brief with these things, but this one for me is my solution to listening to the news or not. That's what I realized. I have this other whole story as to how it works. But often when people are told about radical acceptance, they're told, it just means accepting what is, what is. And everybody goes, I was just talking to another therapist last night. She's like, I hated that skill. And I would tell my patients and my clients, you might hate this skill, but if you do, that's because no one really explained it to you correctly. It does not mean you're okay with what's happening. It means I would change the name. I would call, and I didn't make it up. Marsha Linehan did. She's the DBT person, and man, she's a genius, but I don't like some of her names. I would call it not, I used to think reality acceptance, but I would change it to be reality acknowledgement, because I get the piece about acceptance. What it means is I can't change whatever's happening right now, or I can't change it today, or there's nothing I can do, because if we could do something to change it, we could use that energy to change it. But it might take too long. It might have worse consequences for you right now. If you really hate your job and it feels like a crisis, people be just quit your job, just quit that. Well, it's not that easy for people. So they can use radical acceptance to tolerate that pain while they're looking for a new job. So there's pain. That's the thing that is causing you consternation. Suffering is your response that you add to it. So radical acceptance cannot get rid of the pain. It can't get rid of the wars or the wildfires or the policy changes that are at issue, but it can manage your suffering. And so that you can actually, sometimes you need to suffer first. You need to have a good cry and go swear at a bunch of things and maybe throw some things and break them. Got to get it out first. But then at some point, that's not going to be helpful. All it does is increase our suffering. So radical acceptance, number one, realize you're not accepting. You're fighting against something that at this moment you cannot change. Two, make a decision to accept. That doesn't mean you like it. You're just saying, this is what is right now. And I always add right now. That's my key phrase here. Because if you say this is what is, people can get really upset or depressed because they can't envision this being what's going to be forever. So I just say right now, because it's a crisis survival skill, it's not a long-term strategy. It gets us through the now without making it worse. That's what we're doing. So we make a decision to accept. So for me, that sounds like, okay, I'm upset about this, but you know what? This is what is right now. This is what we're working with right now. And that brings my suffering down. Because if I'm fighting and railing against something I can't change, that's my response. And three, do it again. It's not a one and done. Sometimes it is, sometimes it's not. I have found that I cannot say I'm just not going to watch the news for this so long because the news is very important. What's happening is very important to the people that we serve and the people that I work with who are directly engaging in therapy. So I need to kind of know what some of these things are. But if I watch the news every day, all day, oh my gosh, would I ever leave my house? I don't know. Um, so in between, and again, we can toggle back and forth, right? We can take some time and go, oh my gosh, uh, I I just can't believe this. This is awful, blah, blah, blah. But then I could be like, okay, this is what's happening. I'm just going to acknowledge that and I'm going to take care of myself in some different ways. Maybe I'm going to distract. Maybe I'm going to do something pleasant. Maybe I'm going to do something physical. Maybe I'm going to talk to somebody, whatever. Again, it doesn't make the pain go away, but it helps you tolerate things to get through the now. Um, Boundaries. Oh, my picture's a little fuzzy here. Again, another whole thing. I'm used to drawing on the board and drawing all these things. But really, boundaries in terms of communication are how much do I share with whom? How much do I share with whom and at what level? We can share things at a very broad level or very detailed, but we get to decide. And I encourage people to think about it as a house because, if you lived in this house, do you let everybody in off the street? They just march into your living room? I wouldn't. They could mess it up. They could steal things. They could hit me, whatever. I don't know. But if I don't let anyone in, if I keep everyone out on the street or the sidewalk, then I don't get to have anybody in my house. I don't get to have any connections. I don't get to share with people and eat with them and have fun or hug or whatever. I like this picture because this is how we can sometimes think about boundaries and relationships. And that's going to be who we want to have these complex conversations with. What are they going to be about? Um, so you might have some people that you think, I'm keeping them on the sidewalk. They're going to walk by. I might wave. They might wave. We might ignore each other. They might come to the gate. Then the people who are in your yard, that's cool. They stop by, they come in, they chat. If they come up on your porch, that could be like they could sit down, they could, you know, that's a different level. And then there's in the house. So sometimes people come in the house and they mess up your house and then they leave and you're left with a big mess. And it happens every single time. So then we need to think, yeah, I could just like never let them in at all, never respond to anything, but maybe this is a person who can be on my porch. We'll see. How much do we trust them? How does it go? How careful are they with us? The people in your living room are people that you probably don't need to be careful with. You can share things with them and know that they're going to value that, even if it is different than you. So sometimes this is helpful to think about when you're interacting with people at things like family things or work is a little bit different. Yes, there are different norms and boundaries there, but there are people at work you maybe can share things with, and others that you're just very like, oh yeah, which we're going to get to next. Uh, Communication tips. These are ones I pulled for myself. Listen, then talk. I'm a talker and I love to talk about psychology and anything like that. And so I remind myself listen, then talk. It also helps me focus on listening. And when we're actively listening, we're not coming up with our own rebuttals. We're not coming up with our own little story that we want to share about this. Those are great things, maybe, but when we listen actively, we're listening for understanding. We're listening for not just content, but also emotion and meaning. So I also have learned with difficult conversations, if I listen first, that gives me a lot of information. There are maybe things I want to run in there and say when I'm all hot in emotion mind. I don't need to say that at all. It gives me a little space to be in wise mind, to think about what they're saying and to think about, okay, maybe I don't want to say this. Maybe I just want to set some boundaries within myself about this communication. Validation, we'll get to that in a minute, but validation is not agreeing with someone. Validation is, I'll get to that in a minute. Stay curious is helpful because stay curious. When you're curious, you are out of judgment. When you're wondering and you're open, that's a way you can listen without judging. Using I messages, not you messages. Anytime someone goes, you this, you that, you can just see them pointing their finger at you. Shake, shake, shake. You. I messages, I'm upset by this. I see this differently. Not you don't have the right view. Know when to hold them, know when to fold them. Some kind of a country song. But I mean, seriously, there are times where it's just not gonna be a good time to have that conversation or with that person. And that's okay. Be direct if necessary. Huge gasps from the Minnesotans. Be direct. But sometimes it's okay to just say, you know what? I don't think I want to talk about this right now. Or let's save that for another time. Yeah, I have to think about that and come back to it. It's a little less directed, but you're basically saying, done talking. So there, yes, that's what therapy is. You go to graduate school to learn how to say things in lots of very polite ways. Like you want to say, no, done talking and listening to that. But we come up with some nice ways to say it because we want to maintain the relationship. Okay. Validation. I'm not going to go into this too much, but again, you're indicating that you're hearing someone. You don't have to agree with them. Curiosity is the enemy of judgment. Again. And so validation, I think I have some other phrases here, but you can say, I understand why you'd be upset with that. Or for someone who's maybe got a very different opinion than you. And I have some friends that have some very different opinions than me, and I do not agree with them at all. And if I'm talking with them, and there are some people where we just agree not to talk about things, or I may have internally relegated them to the porch or the yard, but I can validate them. Like you think this is really important to you, and I understand that. That makes sense to me. Ways to set boundaries. And does anybody recognize this guy on my slide? I tried to get a big picture of a wall that was going to represent boundaries, but then I found one with this Monty Python guy. And it's the guy on the top of the castle wall, and he's like saying rude things to the English. But we're going to say them a little nicer way. I hear what you're saying. Uh-huh. Thanks for expressing your point of view. I'm appreciating you sharing your perspective with me. I see that. Uh-huh. And then you can say things if you want, like, you know, that's not my experience, or I don't have the same view, but you know, I understand yours. And yes, be direct. How un-Minnesotan. So I don't have a fancy, flashy wrap up. I'm just really curious if there's anything new in here that someone is thinking, oh, that's kind of interesting. Maybe I could use that. Um,
Marta, can I ask for an example?
yeah,
You brought up the whole boundaries and validation, and you said some folks you have to keep at bay. That wasn't your word, but do you have a way of knowing when that's the best thing to care for yourself is keeping someone at bay, and how to safeguard yourself when I don't want to say it's a toxic relationship, but it could be brewing to a toxic relationship.
yes, yes. And I think this is, let me see. Should I get rid of this screen or are we good with that? Okay. Um, that's an interesting question, which is such a psychology answer, right? Yes, no. I would say to people, oh, I'm actually going to have a therapist who actually answers your question. I have an answer to that. And everybody's like, oh, what's the answer? What's the answer? And I say, yes, no, or maybe. That's your answer. So, Mary, in some situations, so first of all, you don't know till you know, sometimes. I tend to be a person who gives people enough chances. So I'm fairly confirming that this is not going to be healthy for me or to engage with them. Um, and so a toxic relationship like that, sometimes there are decisions where you just can't have that person in your life. Um, the house metaphor that I have came from a friend of mine who called me and said, I don't, can you help me with this? We have a family member that every holiday, they come and we're all having a nice time. There's like extended family, gathering. And they ruin every holiday. They pick a fight with mom. They pick a fight with me or another sibling about something that happened a long time ago. They do this, they do that. And then it takes us like a week of like processing with each other to be able to be like, oh my God, like, they were really stirring stuff up. So that's how we came up with the house thing. And I explained the boundaries piece of where people are. And I suggested some things. And then my friend was like, no, we can't do that. We can't not invite this person. We basically have to have them here. So in a physical way, they're in the house, but in an emotional way, we ended up coming up with some strategies where in an emotional way, this person was more on the porch. And some of those phrases, when they would bring things up, there's some kind of almost diversion tactics where they could say, you know what, that's old stuff, and I can see it's important to you, but let's da 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 da. So they're combining several of the things that I brought up. And then we also came up with this piece of the metaphor that after the gathering, I said, okay, so they still come in, they still mess up, they throw stuff on the floor, they're ripping things and stuff. So when they go, you can, in your emotional way, envision going around with a big garbage sack. You're putting all the stuff in the bag, you're wrapping it up, you're taking it outside. And in my own little drawing, I have this big garbage can out by the garage. And you're putting this in the garbage can. And you're like, yep, that happens. And you know then that when that person's going to come over, they're going to do that. So you can be prepared with some of these strategies.
Beautiful.
Is that helpful, Mary?
Beautiful. Thank you. Great
Okay.
visual.
I like visuals. I like models and metaphors. It's really helpful for people. And I use my hands a lot because anytime you use other things, it connects the neural pathways more. Neurons that fire together, wire together. And so it's helpful to kind of take these amorphous concepts and emotions and be like, this is what I'm doing. I'm gathering up the trash and I'm taking the emotional trash out.
You're great. Anybody else have questions? And Marta, unless you want your slides up, you're welcome to pull them down so people can see you too.
Okay.
See you more. There you go.
Okay.
Anybody else have questions? Thank you so much. This has been a joy.
Oh, thank you. All right. I yield the floor.
Oh no, you got to give another moment. I'm sure there's questions. And let me just scan through the chat also and see if there's a
Okay.
that came up in the chat.
Actually, Marta, I had a comment. So I've heard the flight, fight, or freeze, but
Uh-huh.
it's the first time that I heard that the freeze is an actual physical reaction. And I always kind of had like judgments like, if you freeze, like, why do people freeze? And so it was fascinating. So thank you for that tidbit. I've heard that before, but it gives grace to people who actually like freeze in those situations to understand the physiological reactions to that. So thank you for sharing that. That
You're
was very
welcome. And there's some really interesting information on the studies they've done on animals like deer and such, that when they're in that freeze state, they are almost, it's like they've been anesthetized. They're actually physiologically, chemically, their body is flooded with that. And if you've ever had a freeze panic attack, and I've had one, and it was completely unexpected. And it was after I was a therapist for like years. And it had to do with the state fair. Yay. And that glider thing that looks like a ski lift. I got on that thing, and all of a sudden I was frozen. And my rational mind is going like, oh, I'm having a panic attack. Huh, that's interesting. And the rest of my body was like gripping on the thing like death, like I could not move. And I'm using all these skills. It was crazy, but you know what? It really gave me empathy
mm,
for people in my group. I had never had that before. And there are people, it is terrifying, terrifying. I mean, and incredible. Like I couldn't move. It was very interesting, I can say now. You know what I did though, Kathy? You know the sky glider, you come in at the north end and like you can
yeah.
take it all the way down into the middle and it gets off by the butterfly house. So I go around and I was with my son and he's like, Mom, are you okay? And I'm like, oh, I'm fine. I'm like counting the things as they go by in the other direction. So after our time at the state fair, I thought to myself, I am getting back on that thing and riding it back. And I had to use all my skills to like calm myself and be in the right place and have and then I got back on that thing and I rode it back because I was afraid I would never go anywhere skiing or anything again because it was terrifying. Yeah. So, so interesting. Any other questions?
I like to ask people, how can you use this information? How can you use this beautiful supportive message in your context? And maybe we can jump off chat or use the chat or jump live because I think that helps all of us learn, like, how can I apply this?
Mhm.
This is a great information. Wow.
And there, I see there's a bunch of stuff in the chat too. So, approaches found in brain science. Yeah. Mhm. Yeah, so in our jobs, we work to encourage and protect our work community. We must engage with lions. We do. And it's getting our equilibrium back for the long haul. Um, Yeah, a lot of us are in work roles where we work with health, we work with youth, we work with some underserved populations and such. And there's a piece in the middle. We see some of these lions coming from a distance. And if we panic, we aren't able to make plans as to what we're going to do. Sometimes you have to panic first, but yeah, that's getting the equilibrium back.
And there's a note about the house analogy that you used to oversharing and guard your peace with a PEAC.
Mhm.
I loved your grounding part too, where you tend to yourself so you can tend to others. That's an important one. I definitely remind my own clients of that one, the importance. You can't show up for your kids if you got to take care of yourself first.
Right.
Well, friends, this Marta, you've shared a lot. Thank you. I'm thrilled that it's recorded. So Kathy will send out the recording along with the minutes after this. Yeah, what what I'd love to do now is invite everyone to do the round robin, introduce yourself, and then share any updates. I think it's super important to maybe when you're going around to, if there's something that spoke to you in the presentation, you can share as well. Um, what's helpful is just, is it easiest if I call on folks? Is that easiest? Um, yeah, I can do that. Dan, do you want to start? And then, oh, Dan with Nami, you want to start? And then we'll just keep pushing it all the way around. So Dan, you just push it to someone else. That'd be great.
Hi, Dan Parnell with NAMI in Washington County. The thing I want to remind people is that although the legislature is a bit dysfunctional, there will be a day on the Hill. It'll be on Thursday, February 20th, and certainly invite people to come down, meet your legislators, and hear about the priorities that the mental health legislative network has for things that could help develop the system that will care for our kids. And I'll throw it right to my right, Kathy Makowitz.
Hey, I'm putting a note in the chat. Washington County opened up a Northern Environmental Center up in Forest Lake. So it's for a collection of household hazardous waste, electronics, paint. They have a reuse it room where you can go and get gallons of paint, and all kinds of household cleaners and things like that. So, folks in the northern part of the county don't have to drive down to Woodbury now. Woodbury also has one too. So that's kind of what I can think of right now. And I'll turn it over to Cindy.
I don't know if you can hear me. It looks like I'm frozen on the screen. Can you
You
hear
are,
me?
yeah, you are frozen, but we can hear you.
Okay, great. I guess just the newest update is that we did open the Stillwater drop-in for youth that have unstable housing on Wednesdays from 3 to 5. And then of course we can work with youth and make appointments other times of the week. But yeah, spread the word.
You want to pass it to someone or want me to?
Let's see here. How about Lauren, right below me?
Hi everyone, my name is Lauren. This is my first time at this meeting. I work for Meridian Behavioral Health doing outreach for our co-occurring substance use disorder mental illness programs, mostly the residential. We do have openings and a new treatment director at our Cedar Ridge location, which is in Washington County. If you guys are interested in connecting to hear more about our SUD programs, please give me a call or an email. I just put my information in the chat and I will pass it along to Rhiannon because that's my favorite song. Rhiannon, are you there? All right, we will switch to Molly since Rhiannon is not answering. All right. And Molly isn't answering either. Brendan, I can see you making eye contact, so I know you'll answer.
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Brendan Schmitzer. I'm with Rogers Behavioral Health. Part of our community relations team. We have two clinics here in the Twin Cities serving children, teens, and adults. We're located in Eden Prairie and Woodbury, and we treat we have a number of different programs, including our OCD and anxiety program, depression program, eating disorder program, trauma program, and then co-occurring substance use program. Feel free to reach out. My contact information is in the chat if you have any questions. And I will send it over to Stephanie.
Which Stephanie? Lindy Kugel or cool?
Let's go with you since you answered first.
Yeah, okay. Hi, I'm Stephanie Lindy Kugel. I'm with District 622, North St. Paul, Maplewood, Oakdale. I guess I would say right now our big news is that we are knee deep in staffing and budgeting and like many school districts facing some budget cuts, which is difficult. I am the Project Aware Grant Manager, so that is federal funds that support our school-based mental health programs. And this is our final year, so we have funding until September 30th. And we are also working on figuring out how we're going to continue everything we've put into place. I've given my budget and costs to our superintendent. We are also looking into adapting some of the MA billing for mental health services, which is something that has opened up, and that would fall on services, being able to collect some funding for students with IEPs, services that are being provided by our school social workers and licensed staff that's employed by the district. So a lot of big things happening, and this was a very relevant conversation, Marta, for me, because there is a lot of stress right now as far as what is going to happen with that. So we're hoping for good things, but it's a busy time. So thank you. And
Steph,
we'll pass it on to the other Stephanie.
actually, Steph, I'm curious, where does your funding come from?
Um, so we that's another good question, which has got my anxiety up today. We are federally funded through SAMHSA. And this Project Aware grant is actually, our district is part of a cohort of 4 school districts that work with MDE. The SAMHSA grant actually goes to MDE, and then MDE chooses which districts are part of receiving that money. So we are part of a cohort of 4 districts, but ultimately the money's coming from the federal government. And I was actually looking for communication today with this new announcement that all federal grants are frozen. And I don't know if that means existing grants or upcoming grants that haven't been approved. A little bit of a concern today. Yeah.
Well, hello, everyone. First, Marta, thank you so much. That was a wonderful presentation and extremely timely, like everyone else is feeling, I'm sure. I'm Stephanie Kvarik. I am with Lakeview Health Partners. I am part of our Community Health and Partnerships team. And my main area of focus is on our community initiatives, in particular, our Make It Okay initiative that focuses on helping to reduce the stigma of mental health and illnesses in our communities. And we do that in a number of ways through our outreach. We're out at a lot of events, but another really important way is we have monthly, actually we have switched them currently to every other month, presentations on our community conversations, we like to call them, on what Make It Okay is and how you can help to reduce the stigma, learn what to say, help support those who are living with a mental health challenge or condition. And we have two versions, actually, our general Make It Okay and one that is led by our Programs for Change counselors on substance use disorder and the stigma of substance use disorder. So we offer those as well. Our next general Make It Okay presentation is on February 18th. It is virtual. It's a 1 hour. I'll put the link in. It's just makeitokay.org/events, and you can find everything that we have up. And March 4th, we have our next Make It Okay presentation with the emphasis on substance use disorder. And then we also do trainings to help train ambassadors to become those trusted messengers out in the community on helping connect and bridge people to resources and to help stop the stigma. So, and those are currently offered every quarter. We had some staffing changes, and so we're just trying to get caught up and so we just moved them out a little bit. So every other month for the presentations and quarterly for our ambassador trainings right now. Hopefully, starting in the fall, we'll go back to monthly, but that's where we're at right now. And Andrea.
Morning, everyone. Andrea Martinez, she, her, age of pronouns, and I'm a community partnerships manager with mHealth Purview. The kind of update that I have for you is that we published our community health needs assessment reports on last December. So I'll be posting the reports of the St. John's and Woodwinds hospitals as they both cover Washington County. So I'll be dropping the link in the chat, but basically our 3 priorities are accessing and navigating care and resources, addressing structural racism and barriers to equity, and cultivating trust, belonging, and healing. If you have any questions about the report, the priority needs, and the identified barriers, when you take a look at the report, feel free to reach out to me. I'll also leave my contact information in the chat. And I'm not sure who's left. So I'll just volunteer anyone who hasn't talked yet.
How about Kathy Walsh? Will you jump in?
Sure, I can jump in. Good morning, everyone. Kathy Walsh, juvenile probation for Washington County. We are starting our voices group that we teach, myself and Danielle. It's Stephanie Covington's 18-week self-discovery and empowerment group for girls. If you ever thought about getting a program in your high schools for girls, this would be it. I think it's appropriate for everyone. So, yeah, and Marta, thank you, because all of the things and the skills that you were sharing, we can use in our group to help calm things down. So we're not therapists. It's just we have a journal and go through things. It's kind of the highlight of my year with my girls on my caseload. So yeah, thank you. Betsy Urbis, I don't think you've gone. If you have any updates, I don't know if you have any.
I have just been listening intently, but no, I do not have any updates at this point. Thanks though, Kathy.
You're welcome. Janelle, did you go?
It unmuted. There you go.
Okay, I'm unmuted now. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, okay. I am with NAMI Washington County, and we have a couple things coming up. One is Screenagers showing in conjunction with Mary Gugesberg, and it's the elementary version. It's which we're excited about, and Mary was able to get 4 churches sponsoring it, which means more people involved. And it will be on February 19th. Like I said, in the evening, it starts with a church dinner if you want to go to it and so on. So we're trying to spread the word on that. Along with trying to spread awareness of mental health in NAMI, we were able to connect with the St. Croix Hockey Association. And Dan was at the Martin Luther King Showcase sharing some materials last weekend. Unfortunately, it came up so quickly that we didn't have a lot of volunteers to do that, and we didn't have a real big space, but I think he had a positive experience. And then there's a couple other things too. We've got a lot going on. We have someone who has been helping us on our team, but isn't quite on the board yet, enlisted some National Honor Society students to possibly volunteer it, and we want to train them at events like the Screenagers showing. And we have an intern from Century College who is going to help on some initiatives, which Dan, right now, I'm trying to think of what she's going to specifically do, the intern, but that's a lot.
She's going to be working on our social media
Okay.
presence because the old people like Janelle and I don't know that world.
Right. Yep. It's so that's NAMI Washington County. Thank you. And thank you so much, Marta. Very helpful stuff. I'm retired, but yeah, I I run into situations where I can use a lot of those skills. So thank you.
And you guys are doing great stuff too. Thanks, Danielle. Lori, I see yay! I saw you unmute. Can you share any updates, dear?
Yes. Hello. Up here, where am I here? There we go. I'm Lori Schmidt with Anoka County Community Action Program. And even though it's Anoka County, in Washington County, our Early Learning Scholarship and Head Start programs are active. And right now with Head Start, I know there's a waiting list. And scholarships too. We have a big waiting list with scholarships. Our funding is state funding, so I'm hoping the changes won't affect us too much. But we always encourage families to apply. With scholarships, there's a new online application. Head Start has an enrollment hotline that families can call to see if they qualify. And then there was one other thing I wanted to mention. Oh, the Head Start sites in Washington County are Newport and Oakdale, and I believe Forest Lake. I was quickly trying to find those out. The other thing I wanted to mention too is ACAP is celebrating 60 years this year. So the community action programs started in 1965 with Lyndon Johnson's administration, and then ACAP started, I guess that would be 1965, yeah. So we're kind of planning some celebrations this year for staff and the public. It's kind of
Good
fun.
work. Good work. Glad you're here. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Yep.
Hey, Lily, can you jump in and share any updates from Prairie Care?
Yeah, hi. So Lily, sorry, my camera doesn't work today. I'm having some technological issues. So I do community relations with Prairie Care. I cover the whole metro, but I do work a lot over on the east side. So we have our Maplewood and Woodbury sites. So we work with all ages across those two locations and see a lot of kiddos and young adults and adults of all ages at both of those sites. We also see a large number of those kiddos or adults coming over to Brooklyn Park for our inpatient hospital, which is part of one of my updates would be our inpatient hospital that goes up to age 35 for mental health. We can also now work with co-occurring substance use in that young adult unit. So if you're ever working with someone between the ages of 18 and 35 who needs inpatient care, we can now take them if they have co-occurring substance use, when before that was a bit of an exclusionary criteria for us. So pretty exciting. We're still getting a lot of details out about that. So we'll continue to share as that kind of develops and shifts things, but exciting to be able to serve that population where before we had to turn away. So happy to be here.
Great to meet you. Good work. Looking, anybody else that is, I can't see on camera that wishes to jump in. And then I have one last update before we sign up. Okay. Janelle was kind and Dan shared about the upcoming Screenagers. Guys, you can have more of Marta. Marta is going to be on the panel for that event, and so I would love for you to mark your calendar for Screenagers on February 19th. I did drop the registration link in the chat and the flyer if you want to share in your networks. Love to have you there. If a Wednesday night is hard, and you're spontaneous, this Thursday, exact same thing is happening at Hudson High School auditorium for their school district. I'm working with their mental health. Same time, same everything. Hudson High School auditorium. Oh, yep, that's exactly what I was going to bring up next, Kathy, is our future meeting is February 25th. You see it in the chat too, friends. And we're going to have the St. Croix Valley Grief Coalition and Growing Through Loss. And they'll share information and support for us. Wow, full meeting. Anybody have anything last they want to call out? Marta, did you have any updates? I should make sure you have a chance. Do you have any updates, my friend?
Thankfully, not many. I mean, just doing the thing, you know, and Stephanie, I work with Stephanie because we're in several of the 622 schools. So I've been thinking about her a lot during this tumultuous time. I guess for us, we're getting some grief groups going in the middle schools and high schools that we're in. So that's kind of exciting. That'll be something that we're working on.
Gosh, we all just we're all needed. Such great work. On that token, again, anybody off camera that I don't want to miss you, but if you have an update, please vocal, share it in the chat. The recording will be sent out with notes. And on that token, we'll see you hopefully on February 25th. Have a good day and what's coming next. So bless you all. Thanks so much.
Bye, everyone.